This is Jewish Spotlight, a weekly television program presented by Chabad Lubavitch of Long Island, featuring various aspects of modern Jewish life and Jewish culture. Now, here is your host, Rabbi Tuvia Teldin.
Shalom. Isn't it incredible when you see a story or a film, a movie, about the tremendous victory of the power of the human soul, how the human spirit is able to overcome just unbelievable odds in order to be able to show a belief, to carry through with a conviction, or to reach a goal? Well, on an individual basis, of course, that's always inspiring. But when we see it with a whole people, with literally thousands, hundreds of thousands of individuals, it becomes an awesome experience. And this, in fact, is what's happened with the Russian Jewry over the course of the last 70, 80 years. From the time that the Russian Revolution began and the tremendous religious persecution which followed afterwards, what the Jews went through during those 70 years of communism is untold pain and suffering of incredible proportions. What we're going to view tonight is a film which talks about the unbelievable pain and suffering, but coupled together with the incredible, absolutely unbelievable revival and rejuvenation of the Jewish community of Russia over the course of the recent past, since perestroika and the fall of the communist government. Now, I still have to pinch myself once in a while when I talk about the fall of the communist government. But the fact is, there are things going on in Russia which are absolutely mind-boggling as far as the religious freedoms that people are pursuing and are fulfilling in the sense of dreams that they never thought they'd be able to fulfill. And that's something I think that can be inspiring to every single one of us, whatever religious background, whatever persuasion we might be from. Because when we see how people are able to overcome these tremendous obstacles, it's really an incredible sight. And the fact is, the film talks much about how the Lubavitcher Rebbes, over the course of this period of time, had always persevered to make sure that the embers of Judaism should be able to stay even beneath the surface, but somehow that potential for the flame to be able to come forth in great, great power was always there, and we're just waiting for the experience to be able to come forth. And of course, as history developed, and as we all know very well, that moment did arrive. And the things that have happened in the last 10 years as a result of that moment are really incredible to see. So sit back, and we're going to watch a little film called by the name Embers, which gives us a little bit of an insight into, number one, the persecution that the Jews experienced during those 70 years, and number two, the 10 years that have passed since then, and how a whole country has been transformed, thousands of children going to schools, hundreds of thousands of people attending Jewish events, more Jews in Russia than we ever imagined there would be, to a degree that there is a Russian Revolution going on today in Russia that is unlike anything Stalin or Khrushchev or Gorbachev, for that matter, would have ever been able to foretell. And afterwards, we'll give a little bit of more background information to follow up, because what you're about to see is something that I'm sure will move you right in the heart. Sit back and enjoy yourself.
Yosef Yitzhak, my son, dark clouds are descending upon Russia. A regime which persecutes the Jewish religion must meet its end eventually. Ultimately, God will destroy them, but until then, we will suffer greatly from their wickedness and their libels. Yosef Yitzhak, you must sacrifice your life for strengthening Torah in Judaism.
For 70 years, across the USSR, organized religion was banned. Religious Jews were hunted and persecuted. Under the communist regime, in a land spanning 11 time zones, with the highest Jewish population in the world, thousands of shuls, schools, and mikvahs were shut down. 8 million Jews were being choked off from the heritage of their fathers. On a dark night in Moscow in the winter of 1924, Rabbi Yosef Yitzhak Schneerson, the 6th Rebbe of Lubavitch, made a covenant with a group of young men. They vowed to fight to the end to preserve their religion for the Jews of the Soviet Union, even if it meant losing their lives. Under the Rebbe's leadership, an organized underground of hundreds of cheder elementary schools, yeshivas, and mikvahs sprung up from St. Petersburg in the west to Tashkent in the east. These dedicated men and women managed to keep the spark of Yiddishkeit alive in hundreds of towns and cities across the land. The communists persecuted, chased, and harassed the Rebbe and his operatives. Often within days, a new mikveh would be filled with cement. A report would arrive of a teacher sent to the firing squad, his young students sent to Siberia. But there always seemed to be another Hossid ready to fill his shoes. Years of communism, hundreds of Hasidic activists were executed. Thousands more were arrested and sent to Siberia for years of hard labor. In 1927, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak himself was arrested and sentenced to capital punishment. Through the intervention of the governments of the United States, Germany, and Latvia, and petitions signed by hundreds of thousands of Jews across the Soviet Union, the sentence was commuted. The Rebbe was banished from Russia. In 1939, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak, father of the seventh Rebbe, was imprisoned in Dnipropetrovsk, Ukraine, for his counter-revolutionary work. Among other crimes, he had personally stood up to Premier Stolypin and refused to follow the Premier's orders to certify government-baked matzahs as kosher for Passover. Rabbi Levi Yitzchak was exiled to a remote area of Kazakhstan. He passed away of his suffering in exile in 1944. He was buried 2,000 miles from his home in Almaty, Kazakhstan. In 1950, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, at 48 years old, became the Rebbe. Under his guidance, the struggle intensified. Not a day would go by when the Rebbe would not struggle for the Jews of Russia.
ובפרט die was gefunden sich nach Heile Mossach Basel, was nicht über sehr Schuld, ob sie noch nicht sicher gewesen zu der vollsten Möglichkeit von lernenden Teilen und bekam sein Mitzvah bis im Chuftur
The Rebbe toiled endlessly for their physical and spiritual well-being. He sent couples posing as tourists, as clandestine shluchim, bringing strength and determination to his Russian underground. The couples would memorize hundreds of names and addresses. Russian border guards were left scratching their heads by Hasidic couples who would travel to Russia for a 2-week stay, laden down with kosher salami and Jewish books and films. The humanitarian aid was used to feed Jews in cities and shtetl across the land. The shluchim smuggled out film strips where Jews would request the Rebbe's blessings.
Ich will beten, als der Rebbe soll Rachmanis haben auf unsere Kinder.
Ich will beten, der Rebbe soll beten, die alle Iden, welche sitzen in Wetzel-Zohar.
Rebbe, благодарю тебя за просьбу, которую ты исполнил, и о которой я говорил в прошлый раз.
The Rebbe would debrief the shluchim for hours on end, often weeping upon hearing the reports of physical and spiritual persecution. Perhaps more than anything else, the message the shluchim brought the Jews of Russia was that someone on the other side of the curtain remembered and cared. Someone would not sleep and would not rest until they would be freed from their bondage. In 1989, the shackles began to break open with the fall of communism and perestroika. Immediately, the Rebbe began to dispatch shluchim to bring Judaism above ground. With restriction on religion being officially released, the ashes, glowing for 70 years, finally burst into flame, the warmth of Judaism began to glow for the millions of Jewish men, women, and children across Russia who didn't even know the meaning of the word Jew. Schools, shuls, mikvahs, and community centers began to spring up. Once again, children were laughing in the hallways of Jewish schools. An entire Jewish infrastructure has sprung up from the embers, which were kept alive for 70 years.
The first holiday, we put a small ad in the newspaper. We thought that maybe 200 people showed up. My wife and I decided that we're moving here, for sure. There are people here, there are youth here. There's a future.
I understood long ago that we have to make a change. Enough hiding, enough being ashamed of our Judaism. My husband also, at the beginning he didn't go, now he goes to the synagogue.
In 1932, they took away our seat to a factory, a textile factory named Stalin. Now they're giving us back our synagogue.
There used to be about 40 synagogues. There were mikvahs, cheders. 80% of the people were Jewish. When we came here, there was almost nothing. Now, we're rebuilding the synagogue.
Last year we opened up the first Jewish school in the whole Ural and Siberia region. We have over here a place right next door that we're planning to build a mikveh. We already bought a house.
The Jewish revival in Kiev recently received a tremendous boost. Thousands of adults participated in study days, and many others come to classes in Jewish heritage.
Got a young couple who's just been married a year or two, and they pick themselves up with their Chaya Mushka or the Menachem Mendel. They may or may not speak the language to begin with, and they arrive there and there is absolutely nothing there. And they go basically as pioneers to rebuild what once was a glorious Jewish life there.
On Hanukkah and Purim, usually we have many thousands of people. To get young people actively involved in Jewish life.
We help all the people. We go to different Jewish houses. We tell them about the holidays, about how a Jewish person lives.
Our goal, which we want to reach, is to take all those 80,000 people which live now in Odessa and to unite them as one Jewish family.
I remember Passover in 1991. We had about 800 people. It was like a breath of fresh air after many years of repression and not being able to keep our traditions.
When I first came to Russia 13 years ago, wherever I went, whoever I met, Jewish activists, refuseniks, religious people, youth, elderly, they all knew one thing. There's one person that really cares for them, and this is the Lubavitch Rebbe. They all knew there's somebody that they could turn to and could really help them to solve their problems. Because at that time it wasn't fashionable to help Russian Jews. Not only wasn't it fashionable, it was actually dangerous.
Я надеюсь, что эта трансмиссия также слышится в Советской России во многих местах. Бхол моким шеголу и строил шхино и море, что Бог находится в каждом из них без различия находится ли он в европейской России или в азиатской России, находится ли он там в относительно свободе или даже находится в ссылке, так с каждым из них находится Бог сам, ее играет и дает ему силу пережить все эти трудности.
Everyone likes it here. It's a wonderful revival. I survived the war, and now here, this is my family.
Twice a week, someone comes to my house. When I need medication for myself and my wife, they never refuse me.
When we see this, we feel great happiness. We understand how much the Rebbe felt for every Jew. We truly understand what it means to help another Jew spiritually and materially.
Very needed for our children's physical challenges to bring.
Here the situation is in such complete poverty that it's come to the point that there's no money to bury their dead.
In Kharkov, you can now say with complete certainty that every Jew has everything that they need.
For decades and decades, world Jewry dreamed and prayed for the freedom of Soviet Jewry. Today, when you go from city to city and you meet the Jews and the children and those who are becoming part of the Jewish community again, you can witness the miracle of our generation.
So far, it's great. They treat us very hospitably. They set us up in beautiful bunks.
The Friedrich Lubavitch Rebbe was put in prison in 1927 in Leningrad. Today, camp children come by the same streets that they took the Friedrich Rebbe from his home into prison. And today, those children for whom he sat in with tzitzis on their sides, a yarmulke on their heads. Generations of Yidden suffered for Yiddishkeit, and today, thank God, they could have it once again.
I like the Jewish camp. In the evening, we have night activities, we have computers, we go paddle boating.
I was at home reading the newspaper. It said that they're accepting young people to the Torah Institute, so that it's my own. And every day I try to be more observant.
Когда приходит сын или дочь, маленький еврей или маленькая еврейка, и приходит к своему отцу или своей матери и просит у них, чтобы они с ним учили еврейство, учили Тейру Митвей, как закон Советской России, гарантированной Советской Конституцией, обещает и предохраняет и указывает всем властям до милиции этого улицы или этого переулка, что отец или мать может, и никто не смеет им мешать учить со своим сыном и со своей дочерью Тору в полной мере, включая исполнение митвы в ежедневной жизни.
The Rebbe sent us here in 1990, 10 years ago. But Jewish observance here was very weak, as it was throughout the entire Soviet Union. Thank God now you see the school which President Ukravivina gave back to us.
Children were ashamed. Many were afraid to walk in the streets with a kippah and tzitzis. When they started to learn here, there was a complete change in them.
I already know all the morning prayers, and I already teach my mother the prayers so that she will know them too.
She showed us how to observe Shabbos. Now I light candles, and when Shabbos comes in, we have to do it just how she learns in school. We eat matzah, we have the Passover Seder. All of the observances must be at the highest level.
I was born in Ukraine. I lived here until I was 16. That's why everything that I didn't receive here in my time, I try to give to these kids now.
And I'm learning here for 6 months. I'm learning now Hebrew, but I don't know it quite well, but I'm learning, still learning.
I really like to learn here, because here we have really good teachers, friendly teachers, smart teachers. They give us very good lessons.
We came to Dnepropetrovsk. There was still communism, and now it's been 10 years, and a lot has been going on. Started off with 5 children, and there are over 700 children now.
Каждый отец и мать, каждый дедушка и бабушка может воспитать своих детей и внуков и внучек, как он хочет. И те, которые мешают этому, они криминальники и нарушают советские законы, их нужно снять с их постов и посадить на их место таких, которые будут соблюдать советские законы. И не только не будут мешать питанию согласно духу истинного еврейства и священной Торы и ее митцвы, но они что будут их охранять и помогать в этом.
When the president came to the opening of the community center, people here couldn't believe it. They didn't believe that they're awake and seeing in the country that prosecuted the grandparents for being Jewish. Their parents had to hide their Jewishness, and today they can come out openly, opening a Jewish center in the center of Moscow, saying, yes, I'm Jewish, I'm proud of it, I'm proud of my religion. This is really the happiest day in their life.
When I was a small boy in Tashkent, I was one of those who very secretly wanted to learn how to read. Under no circumstances could it be mentioned anywhere. God forbid someone should find out about it. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, who never cut the connection even through the most dangerous times in the Soviet Union, he constantly continued to hold the connection.
I remember in St. Petersburg 10 years ago, I was involved then with the opening of a Jewish boys' school for the first time in the Soviet Union. But since then, there has been unbelievable progress. Not long ago, it's hard to imagine it now, all of this was strictly prohibited. People would hide in cellars to learn their own language. Who could live here? Women have come here today with their children, even the very young. That is a great sign. That means the center has already established itself, and it has a great future. Here, in the Russian home of the Jewish Center, may there always be many visitors. May there shine an atmosphere of friendship. May this be a great beginning.
just want to add on one footnote to that incredible film. I'm sure many of you have seen things in the last 22 minutes that you never thought you would see in your life. But the story with Putin is that he came back soon afterwards, just a couple months later after that first visit on Hanukkah, and he came back and was presented a menorah and a shofar by the chief rabbi of Israel. And at the time he made an incredible statement to tens of thousands of people, many of them older people who had gone through the persecution of Russia. And he said at that time that I apologize for the persecution that I personally was responsible for in St. Petersburg in order to persecute the Jewish people. An incredible time in our history as a Jewish people. And just one other thing I want to add on also. The Rebbe, and I remember this personally, the Lubavitcher Rebbe said very clearly, back in 1980s, late 80s, when Gorbachev became the president of Israel, the president of Russia, and he said at that time that we should prepare for all of the exodus of Russians that are going to come out of Russia to go to Israel. Nobody knew what the Rebbe was talking about. But of course, within a very short period of time, this in fact happened. It was a prophetic statement of the Rebbe, one which I will never forget, and one which of course has had the effect on thousands and thousands of lives. So let's be happy that we're in America. Let's do what we can to support the Jews in Russia as well, because they need our support. What they're doing there is absolutely incredible. Take care from the Jewish Spotlight. We'll see you next week for another interesting story. All the best. Shalom.
Sim, 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 sim,